Hey guys, welcome, and this is the Mafia Championship podcast. I'm glad to see you guys. There's already a lot of hype in the chat. I'm very happy to see that. I'm your host Thingaman. I apologize for the slight delay. There was some audio issues. Hopefully they are fixed now, or I believe they are fixed now. This is episode 13. And 13 is usually an unlucky number, but I am going to perceive it as a lucky number today because I'm very lucky and fortunate to have these people with me today. As some of you might have noticed or recognized, these aren't just any people. These are some of them are last year's finalists. These are some of the jury members who helped pick some of the semifinalists for this year's championship. So unlike the 10 previous podcasts, we won't be talking about one specific game today. Instead, I will be talking with these members of the jury, some of the members of the jury, as well as one of my co-tournament organizers and fellow MU admin / red guy, Ampharos, aka Amy, who has a better mic with them today. If you guys have questions throughout the podcast, please feel very free to ask them. There are some things that we won't be talking about today. Namely, specific reasons as to why some players advance or conversely didn't advance, and just we won't be talking about details about behind the scenes stuff with the jury. We still have 45 people in the running for the title of the internet's best Mafia player, and we'll be talking about that somewhat today. Who we are gonna hear from right now are some of the people that got close to that title last year. And let's take them in order. Let's start from the top, at least on my screen, on the stream screen. We have Geo, formerly known as Dad, from Beltree. What's up, Geo? Please introduce yourself. Tell us about, whatever you want, but maybe how you got into the Mafia Championship and whatever you want to say.
All right, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm Gio. I am from the Beltree. I've played some other places, but that's primarily where I'm from. I got into Mafia in 2014. And what else did you want from me here?
No, you say whatever you want. That's fine.
Okay, I like Mafia. It's like chess, but like a social chess. You know what I mean? You get to do a lot of thinking, and you make friends along the way. It's just fun, you know. That's really my answer to that.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, we have Sunfan, aka Greg from Super Mafia All Stars, a place I've played myself many years ago, where, as I was reminded, I had a Viking beard back then. What's up, Sunfan, the sunny guy? Please tell us more about like your Mafia history and or whatever you want, and how you got into the Mafia Championship.
Yeah, as Thingy Man said, my name is Sunfan. I also go by Greg. Maybe some people know me as that. I've played Mafia pretty much in a continuous state since October of 2013, like pretty much no real breaks. I love the game to death. I'm probably going to play it till I die. I think Video Mafia is really great. If you've never really like considered it, I was super nervous, didn't want to appear on a stream. And now I've played it probably over 1,000 times.
Wow.
For the nature of Mafia itself, I find it one of the hardest things in the world to explain. I once called it poker without the cards, and then someone really good at poker said poker is poker without the cards, so I think I give up explaining it now. But it has an allure to me that's is inescapable. A je ne sais quoi, maybe. But I love it to death. And if you're out there and you've only played in one forum, I would encourage you to try and find somewhere else. It's really great to experience new things in a game that you know very well.
I agree. Fortunately, I think many people share that idea. At least most people that come to Mafia Universe usually come from somewhere else, and I would definitely also recommend trying across genres and try. For example, Video Mafia, I very highly recommend as well. The only reason I don't play Video Mafia myself is, well, one, time, and two, usually the good games are going when it's night Euro. So hey, if anyone ever starts up a European Video Mafia thing, hit me up. I'll be there.
Yeah, okay, I'll actually message you.
Cool. All right, next up we have Adrian, who I believe actually subbed in to the finale last year. Adrian from CD Zelda Dungeon. Please tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, I'm Adrian, and I was in the season 5 and season 6 Mafia Championships, representing Zelda Dungeon, and I definitely had fun. I've played mostly on CD and MU. And like Gio said, I also enjoy kind of the social chess aspect of Mafia. That's definitely always appealed to me. And I do still enjoy, I guess, improving my own gameplay as well. Like, I know that sometimes I especially get fooled by deep wolves. That's one of my biggest weaknesses, losing an F3 and F5. But hopefully, I've been getting a little better at it. And it was definitely fun, obviously, spectating all of the qualifiers in this season. And hopefully, maybe I'll play again in the future. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so as well. And of course, you couldn't this year because you were a finalist, right? So the jury members can play again. I imagine some of you, actually, that might be a fun question to ask you. Actually, I'll ask it right now. Who, if they could, would have played this year gladly for the community? Raise your hand. Yeah, that's I like seeing that. I like seeing the hunger. That's like the hunger sometimes disappears with the years, but I'm glad to see some here still has the hunger for it. I actually I don't think I've actually said this on stream, but I was if NANOOK hadn't volunteered for Nilsson, who was originally slotted to play for my side, I would have volunteered myself. So who knows? Maybe we'll see a Thingman play in a future year. I feel somewhat ambivalent about it because I'm the tournament organizer, but then again, Lisa is more so the main organizer these years or these days or whatever you say. So I guess I could maybe play sometime. Who knows? It'll be fun to play in my own tournament again. I played way back in season 1 for those who don't know. Moving on to Amy. Speaking of organizers, Amy, who's previously been on the podcast. Please, for those who, I mean, most people probably know you, but for those who don't, please introduce yourself to the podcast.
I'll be quick about it. Hi, I'm Amy. One of the admins of MU. I do mostly like day-to-day stuff, staff oversight, shit like that. Started playing Mafia on Smogon.com back in like 2011. Version of the game we played was very different than what gets played on MU. A lot of outside communication, roll madness, angle shoot riddled cesspools of not really Mafia at all. So I didn't really start getting actually good at Mafia until I found MU around 2016 or so. And the rest is history from there. Since then, I've basically been on a one-woman quest to make sure that whenever I play Champs next time, the sites played on section is as long as humanly possible, just as a flex. And I actually took some notes on something I specifically wanted to talk about this podcast. So I'm just going to show these real quick, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah.
Oh, that's Amy. Amy living up to the podcast favorite. All right. Good one. All right, moving on to Pawn Lelouch, who from Space Battles, who I believe, am I correct that your community participated for the first time last year? Or had they participated once before? I can't remember.
It's weird because Space Battles is basically a subsidiary of SV that I started because I figured why not.
Yeah.
So arguably my community was there first year, but we had 2 representatives. And so I'm basically thinking we're 2 for 2 kind of. But yeah, I'm Pawn Lelouch. I'm Space Battles representative, basically also an SV1. Started playing in either 2016 or 2017. I can't remember which. I've played a few games on MU, Syndicate, Serenes, probably more, but I can't remember. I got into chats because it was like thingy was going around asking like, hey, anyone want to do this? And then Tara just said, go talk to Pawn, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I'd be down. competitive. It sounds fun. Let's do it. And things kind of went from there. I like Mafia, I suppose, because it's interesting. It's exciting. It's like something where you can get a very fun like battle of wits while also having a huge adrenaline rush during the most tense moments, and that's a mix that's very hard to find, and it's one of those things where you can kind of play it all the time when that isn't necessarily the case for a lot of other things. So it's just kind of fun off of that. And yeah, pretty much done.
Yeah, and here you are. Also very popular now in the community, and it's interesting the thing you said about how I contact your community and your name was given to me. Like that's what happens like at least half of the time. I try to like contact one of the community leaders such and ask, well, who should I actually be talking to about this tournament thing. And usually, like half the time, the name they give me, who helps me with the process, such is just the guy they sent, because yeah, that's usually the player that's very energetic and excited about the game. Last up, we have a Conqueror. We have a NANOOK, the Conqueror. Please introduce yourself, oh mighty Conqueror.
I'm NANOOK. I also go by Clem. I've been playing Mafia since for Mafia since 2016, I think. I've played one or more games on 8 to 10 sites, I think, but primarily I play on Mafia 451. And I will hard stand for Mafia 451 as the best interface out there to play Mafia on.
Interesting.
Especially if you play on a phone.
Yeah. Well,
especially on a phone.
So pay heed, those of you with a phone out there.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. I interrupt you. Go ahead. Oh, did you cut out NANOOK? Oh, you can continue, yeah. NANOOK, sorry.
I was just going to say that the way I got into Champs was Thingy or Alyssa sent the invitation to Ellie, who runs 451, and he said, "Okay, Clem, you're gonna do this." Actually, he said, "Clem, you're gonna sub for this," and then our main guy dropped out. And then Ellie came to me and said, "Okay, you're in," and that was it.
That was it, indeed.
That was that.
All right, and yeah, and so like I said, again for those who don't know, the Sun fan, Adrian, Pawn Lelouch, NANOOK, and Gio, they all played in the finale last year. And if you played in the finale of the previous season, that means that you get to be a jury member for the current season. You're of course not forced to, because we can't force, and there's no pay. So it's very much a job. I mean, it's at least if like you're full into it, it's at least a part-time job having to read these games. I mean, you could even make it a full-time job if you wanted to. So yeah.
Incidentally, I don't get paid either.
Yeah, Amy also does not get paid. But except with my gratitude, Amy, you have that.
Gee, thanks.
You're welcome. But yeah, so these are some of the jury members, and I believe those who are present here were all active, or mostly all active, at least active in some regard, and some of course have more time and can be more active, but yeah, they were all active and like cast votes, or how it's up to the jury to decide, by the way, how they do it. Actually, because again, I can't assume that people know about this, because of course they don't necessarily, but how it works is we don't even say anything specific to the jury, but I think it's understood that they are advancing players based on the same criteria that the in-game players are, which is best player. And that's very subjective, what the best players, but they're not doing it MVP style, and they're not doing it anything other style. They're just trying to give their assessments of who the best players from the games that are being shown. So they can't go off of other knowledge. At least that's what we tell them. Of course, there's bias possible and whatever, right? But that's the goal. And so all these players, all these jury members, then try to come to a consensus, and sometimes that can be via vote or ranking or just discussion. It's completely up to the jury members how they want to do this. And so besides that, we're not going to talk too much details about the process, but I'm curious because we have you here to, well, ask you guys that about the experience of being a juror. How did you find that? And I guess, besides answering that, maybe if you had to name one thing that you personally weighed the highest, what was it in evaluating these players? And anyone can take this. Oh, sorry, 2 seconds. No. All right, I have to start a new meeting. Oh, Zoom went back to not allowing more than 40 minutes. That sucks. Seconds. All right, guys. You look at my face while we fix this. It will be fixed momentarily. Here's my beautiful face. The stream has been redacted. All right, so someone's. All right, 2 seconds. Someone's gonna make one for me, and then we'll get rolling again. Well, that's annoying that they did that. It used to be that Zoom allowed meetings because of. Oh, we have one now. Technical difficulties today. Sorry about that. Just a second, guys.
Thanks, RJ.
All right, well, this will momentarily be right. Everything looks funky. Just a second. All right, well, people were quick, so that's good. All right, just got to switch around the names. Do that. Everyone's getting. Not Pawn, that is Adrian. Not Sunfine, that is Geo. Hi, I'm the Sunfine. And that is NANOOK. Oh, NANOOK, you got the same place. Waiting for Sun.
I'm here.
Oh, RJ. I guess RJ, you can you pass it on to me, or does that mean it only lasts 40 minutes still?
There you go. I can give you a host. No, no, you're fine. You're good.
All right, awesome. And I guess all right. Waiting for one last person to join. All right, thanks. I will hide non-video. Oh, okay.
You should be able to hide non-video participants, and
all
then
right.
so long as he doesn't join with video, it should be okay.
All right. Yeah, I'm going. All right, I'm just going to show the screen for a second as we have someone, as someone will join. so that their real name doesn't appear on this stream. Sorry
so
about
Mafia,
that, guys.
am I right?
Yeah. Pawn, if you're here, I will say, if you are worried about your real name, it did show up in the Google Docs for the draft.
I don't care about the Google Docs. I'm worried about the Twitch people seeing it, since that's a much wider audience.
Yeah, I just wanted to say.
Yeah. All right. And by the way, all right, I'm gonna put us on stream now.
Okay.
There we go. All right. No names were shown. We Gucci. All right. There we go. We're back. Sorry, guys. Now I know. Jury process. Yeah. Who wants to answer? How did you find being a juror? And if you had to name one thing that you personally await the highest, what would you name as that one thing? And anyone can take this.
I definitely enjoy doing jury a fair bit because I'm kind of a completionist. I was already going to read all the games and probably do personal rankings and all this. So it kind of gave me a purpose and meant I wasn't just wasting my time to waste my time. And if I had to say any one thing that influenced me the most, and this is going to be kind of nebulous to an extent, but process, because functionally we only have one game to work with for each person, and this is about functionally bringing over the best person rather than necessarily the MVP. So one game can have a huge amount of variance regardless of the person's skill level. It can just get unlucky sometimes, or someone can have an amazing game where a lot of it just doesn't quite really show as an actual example of their skill, that they're not as good as it shows there. And that kind of thing can be very obvious. So it's like, I think we should try and reduce that variance, try to take into account the clear processes that they show, the mindset, the strategies, all of that, because all of that is going to be more important overall during the rest of the tournament.
I agree with that completely. And it's like, well, you could look at a game and, well, a player could say that, oh, well, I'm going to I'm going to eliminate people alphabetically. And if they just happen to be right, well, then by results, they were the best player and MVP. But by process, they were not. And that's not going to do you any favors in the long run. So, of course, you have to look at process. And again, if you take the world's best player, especially this game, you are going to be able to find games where they were just off. There's no superhero out there that got all their games right. And if they claim so, they haven't played enough games, or they're lying, or they have a selective memory. That's just not the case with this, because there's so many factors play. People's games evolve. There's meta, just a lot of stuff. So that's never gonna happen. And yeah, sorry, I think someone else was about to say something.
I will keep it like under 30 seconds. I'm glad that I did the jury process. There's a personal quote I have about Mafia, and I would also describe it to the jury. It is from a British TV show. It is, I could run a hotel perfectly if it wasn't for the guests. And I'm really mad that everyone didn't have exact same opinion as me all the time, always. But I'm glad that I had done this, because I wasn't sure that I was going to. It took up a lot of time, but like, yeah, I'm very glad that we put together a list of 23 plus 9 plus 9 names that I'm like pretty ultimately very happy with. But getting it, especially the last couple of days, was very frustrating, and I'm going to remember that the most, like when I think about the jury moving forward.
Yeah. Anyone else with maybe thoughts on like one thing they weighed the most? Because I guess you could say I agree with the process, but maybe that's also maybe a general answer. So because there could be specific elements in the process that you weigh more highly than others, right? Like how you do analysis of votes, or how you like whatever it could be, interactions and such.
I will say this: you can't just use one skill. I've had bad luck using one skill or one thing. the game. You have to have a.
I think you cut out Gio. What do we have to have? Such a cliffhanger. You need to have good connection. I think that's what Gio was about to say. That's very vital.
Mafia without internet.
Yeah. Case in point. I'm sorry, Gio. You cut out. You said you need to have, and then we didn't hear the rest.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We got you now.
I said you just need to have a diversity of skill sets that you're using, because sometimes you can apply them in certain situations and you can't. And knowing when to apply a certain skill, when to use vote analysis, when to use wagonomics, that's important to know. You have to be able to read the situation, and if you're able to do that, I think you're going to succeed in wild card and final.
I guess we could also move on from that to talk about the jury system, if anyone has thoughts on that. And if you would make any changes to the jury system. Like some people have suggested that the jury should hold all the power, that the player shouldn't be voting to advance anyone, that it should be the jury. Does anyone agree with that stance?
I disagree very strongly. I would really not like to see that.
Yeah.
I'm of two minds where I do think it would produce a slightly better outcome. Not majorly so. Like, I'm assuming that jury would be forced to pick 2 people from each game minimum and then fill out the rest. But I also fully admit that isn't realistic. It hurts the whole feeling that people have of being involved, that their vote matters, which is important. So as much as I would like to have that I think it would be slightly better as a metric, just because people in game are going to be biased by it, that there's going to be examples of people who say die early and don't really breed, so they go off of just the early game stuff, or just go off of whoever the winning team is, regardless of if they played good or not, town or scum, where those just sort of factors really, I think, hurt its viability. I just know that it's never going to happen. So
I think it is. I think if you cut out the player vote entirely and go to a full jury system, you're just trading one set of biases for another. Obviously, the players are going to have their own biases, but to say that the jury is a completely impartial body is, nobody can ever be a completely impartial body. Everybody's going to have their own ideas and opinions and predispositions coming into the process. On top of that, if you cut out the player vote entirely, you're losing an important perspective, which is that a game of Mafia feels very different on the ground from in the middle of it than it does when you're reading it over after the fact. And I think that's an important perspective to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jagged Jimmy J says in chat, only players have a complete grip on the context of game events. They simply have to have a share of the vote.
I would agree with that.
Well, they don't see wolf chat, right? Unless they're wolves, is the thing I would say to that. But I agree ultimately with everything up to that point that he said.
I mean, I think that the best advancement system is a scoring system, but without a scoring system in place, then I don't know that you're going to get better than a jury advancement.
And what do you mean by a scoring system?
Like an objective-based scoring system, where you.
And
I understand that's a controversial. People have a lot of opinions on what makes up good and bad scoring systems, and that I'm not trying to open that can.
No, but
that would, if there were a good one, that would be the best solution.
Well, I can agree to that. I can agree to the fact that if there was an objective scoring metric, that would be the best way to go about it. I personally disagree that there is an objective one. I do understand people wanting to talk about it. Yeah.
I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can get pretty close, but that's a different.
you lagged a little bit
without that conversation. Oh, did I?
Yeah.
We didn't catch any of that.
I think you can get pretty close to a viable scoring system. But if without that scoring system, then I would say that the current system is fine. I think that Amy alluded to this, that like you're going, whichever one you use, you're going to have biases is involved either way. So like using just one over just other is trading one set of biases for another. So I think that like probably a jury, like pure jury, is probably the least biased, but I also don't think there's a meaningful difference.
We're actually getting some interesting takes from the chat as well, so I'm going to read those. Jagged Jimmy J says, I think there's a viable argument that it should be an MVP vote. And I guess the argument for that would be that, well, for one, like whoever advances from a soccer match or an NFL match is the one that did the best, right? That like the winners advance. Like that's how actually most sports is, all sports is based around, right? That winners get the win, and get the benefits from that. And I guess more so, it like cuts out the subjective discussion and all the, well, who actually was the best player. Because that's very subjective. But it's easier to pinpoint who was the most valuable player, that is to who seems like the best player in general, who's going to be most valuable in future games. But the problem with that then is, my counter argument would be that well, you can have the world's best player turn up and well, one, if they have the reputation, they're just gonna get killed off, right? But even if they don't have the reputation, you're creating an environment where people are going to want to survive longer. And then you're just sort of tainting the game. You're creating, like, it's not going to be Mafia anymore. It's going to be people trying to downplay their games. And you want people to, I think that, like, that's what makes it Mafia. That's what makes it exciting, because this is also a spectator event to a large degree, actually. It's about community bonding, building, and some of that is also making it exciting for people to watch and talk with each other, make new relations. So we want people playing their best and just playing with their hearts out, right? And you're not going to get that if people are trying to survive because they want to win an MVP vote, because you're not going to win an MVP vote if you think that what you're doing is going to get you killed night one.
As the person who died night one, first time I played champs, I couldn't possibly agree more, Thingy. Like, like it's almost impossible to be a town MVP if you die night one, I think, without something weird happening. Certainly not in this setup. It would look very strange, though it's not impossible.
I've seen some games where you could argue that the Night 2 town death was the MVP, but I can't think of any off the top of my head where I'd call the Night 1 death MVP, even if they were perhaps the best player on the village in a vacuum.
And it's very hard to want to say that they played bad for dying night one. I can't find myself doing that at all. So
yeah,
I think that's a very big point against the MVP system.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also had Tim. Tim's Up to Nothing, another semi-finalist. Jagged Jimmy J is a semi-finalist, and so is Tim, who said, let me just find the quote here because I thought it was an interesting suggestion at least. 2 MVP votes. Town choose one, Wolves choose one, and then the jury get the rest. Would also be one way of doing it.
No.
I think that's too scum-sided because you've got a way smaller pool to choose from.
Yeah, it functionally absolutely biases people towards wanting to ran scum, not only because it's easier in the champs environment, but because you have much higher odds of getting through.
I will bribe the mod to roll scum if we change to that. I will do this.
And in all seriousness, just making it so that you're in the position where, like, you just have a 1 in 3 chance. It's like, or wait, never mind, wrong topic. But basically, it's like sometimes somebody does not deserve to advance from, like, no one deserves to advance from town, and sometimes no one deserves to advance from scum. Functionally forcing that is just unfair.
Yeah. And I here's some interesting Mafia Championship trivia. And also, actually, I'm gonna make a Mafia Championship trivia quiz at some point. So watch out for that. And if you pay attention to the next bit, maybe you'll do well in that quiz. But in the first season, this started with just one game. And I actually headhunted players for us. A lot of people know this. And it was just meant to be that one game. So after the game, we had some votes because just to give out awards because just going to be that one game. So we had like the Wolf MVP, the Village MVP, most feared and such, most feared by Mafia. So only the Mafia could vote for that category, for example. And it was just fun to give out these awards to people. And then, well, we did another game and turned into a season, and we had a finale. So we just had those awards be what advanced people to the finale. So in that way, we actually had what Tim is suggesting here in season 1. The thing that sort of excuses is that we did have larger games back then. It was 25 players per game, so there was a larger pool at least to pick from. So there would be like 5-6 wolves. So I guess most of the time, just based on a random chance, one of the wolves would at least be deserving of advancing anyway. But yeah, we moved away from that obviously because we didn't think that was a good idea. Or I moved away from that. Does anyone else have any thoughts on the jury system or changes to it or the championship while we're on the topic?
I will quickly point out Gio is having Zoom issues, so he's posting in chat. If you've already known.
Yeah, that is true. And Gio did also say that he's, I believe, I can't find now, but he's overall fine with. I'm fine with how the jury is at the moment. Gio says in chat. So I guess, fortunately, we do have the chat here on the stream. Both next to the stream if you're on Twitch, right? But we also have it up here. So you can follow Gio's comments as we go. And at the same time, we can see his lovely darkened face in his room. And if you want to try to talk to you, of course, feel free. I'm not sure what the...
I just wanted to say one thing on this topic.
Yeah.
I guess the main change that you guys made this season, that no one advances directly to the finals, just to the semifinals. I honestly think that was one of the best changes to champs. And like maybe if I do one small change, instead of like a top 2 going to semis, maybe just the top 1, just like we did in the past, sending to finals, but this time just to semis. And then, so we had like 11 qualifying games this season. So theoretically, it would only be 11 people automatically being sent to the semis, and then jury deciding on the rest.
So that's an interesting suggestion. Let me first address the first thing about adding semifinals and no one advanced to the finals. I agree completely. It's a thing that we were very, and I was like one of the people saying this most. I was very hesitant about doing this because usually up in the one going up recruiting people, and they were just like, even the thought of potentially playing 3 games was like scary for so many people. It's the sense that I got. But we're like, we aren't done with this season, so I guess we'll see. But it seems people are taking it like very happy about this. So we will definitely continue to do this. I think, of course, as always, we will ask for feedback after the season. With regards to the other suggestion, it's interesting, and I'd like to get the other thoughts as well. My own thoughts is that what I think happens in a lot of these votes is that the players do sometimes vote MVP-ish. I think if you're only advancing one player, the votes almost don't matter because there's always going to be that one, or a lot of time there's that one clear person to vote just based on how the game turned out, and that's just going to be the one that they advance. And I think it's sort of a shame to not let them have a pick besides that. Like have the players also decide someone else based on how the game went. It's just shows how I feel. And also how it works right now is that it's basically 50-50. So like the games advance half players and jury advance the other half. I think there's sort of a nice symmetry to that.
That makes sense.
But I'm curious to... I saw Sunfed, you had a reaction to it. What do you think about the suggestion?
About advancing one.
Yeah.
You covered most of it. I'm like extremely content with having jury advance 51%, so 23, and then the players advancing 22. It kind of sucks that it's not evenly 50-50,
Yeah.
but on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at like a 2 on how much I care about that.
Yeah.
But I agree that going back to something Pawn said, this is going to sound superior, and I only mean it to be a little superior, but I think the jury is slightly better at finding the better players versus finding the MVPs than the people in the game. So in that regard, I like it, but I don't want to really take away much from the players.
Yeah. We have some comments in the chat on the objective metric system. It's always something that gets people very interested in talking about it because it's interesting. The thought of it, I think it's a very interesting thought experiment. Hallie says, I honestly wouldn't want to be objectively measured because it would change how I play, and I wouldn't like that. And like something I've seen a lot of these systems propose is that a vote for a Mafia player is worth some points versus a vote for a town player. And often that the main issue I see with that is that incentivizes you to, if there are two competing wagons and those are the only two viable wagons and you think both are town, you're not going to vote between those two wagons. You're going to vote off wagon because you want to get your vote on a Mafia for the points. That is objectively destroying the game for town because you're not your vital vote for the town, and you're always in that scenario you're ensuring that one town player is not having any impact on the actual elimination that day. But that's
well, if they are both town, then it doesn't matter, yeah.
But you don't have that. Yeah, I'll let sorry.
No, not necessarily. Like even if you think about town, you can still perform triage. You can still try and say the one who you think is
I mean,
better place.
but if they are both town, then it doesn't like your vote doesn't. It doesn't matter. Like if you, I don't agree with the argument that if you have two
and then the cutout
town wagons up, voting off wagon is bad. Because if you have two town wagons, like I'm not saying if you have two main wagons that you think are both town, like fine, whatever. But like if they are in fact both town, it doesn't matter.
Like I would agree that if you have, or I could more so agree that if you had actually mechanical knowledge that they were both town, that it's good to vote off wagon. Also, just because part of Mafia is also making sure that you have credit yourself. So if you think that helps you earn credit later on to have voted a Mafia, that is an argument for it, right? And not being one of the voters on town. But in reality, and especially in championship games, you're not likely to have mechanical knowledge, and at least not on two players. So, I mean, realistically, what we're talking about is that it's going to be reads. It's going to come down to reads. And I think someone saying that they have so strong reads that they're not going to cast a meaningful vote, I find to be very anti-town. But I'm not sure if the others agree.
I think my main issue with any sort of like objective scoring metric is going to be that it's inherently going to be results oriented because there's no real way to score players except off of results. And I think that's sort of a flawed way to solely be looking at which player is the best player in terms of advancement. I think you have to put a reasonable amount of focus on a player's process and how they actually play the game and not just where their vote winds up or whatever. And I think that it's very hard to do. Maybe not impossible, but it seems very hard to do that in an objective metric.
I mean, I get what you're saying about process, but I don't want to derail this conversation too much. But over an extended period of time, the players who vote for Mafia more are generally going to be better players. Like,
we don't really have an extended period of time, though.
Yeah, that's.
Well, no, I mean, sure, but like that same, like to draw a sports analogy, like if the Patriots and the Giants play 12 or 10 times in 2008, the Patriots probably win 9, but you have to judge off the one game that was played.
My thing is that this is a subjective game. You can't really apply objective processes to something like this. So at the end of the day,
I mean, there are like that. There are objective outcomes, though. Like list of games, but there are objective outcomes. Like we don't at the end of the game we don't sit down and go, okay, which team played better? We'll give them the win.
But I get.
Like we have objective outcomes in this game.
But I guess the counter argument to that, NANOOK, is you're like, and you can stop me if I'm wrong in how I'm saying this, but you're proposing, you're not proposing, but you're actually at least arguing that it could be a good idea, maybe, to award points for someone voting Mafia. But I'm disagreeing, so that makes it subjective already, I guess, right? Because I'm disagreeing that it's always good to vote a Mafia, because it depends on the context. If you're voting a Mafia and you're the only person voting that Mafia, and you're not making a case for anyone else to vote the Mafia, you're not making a good case, because part of the game is being persuasive and getting people to follow you. So just voting Mafia in itself is not good. It's not good enough.
I mean, it's not the only thing that should be rewarded, but it should certainly be rewarded. Like there's 451's been working on several different scoring systems. Like we've been iterating them, and our last one before the current one it had that issue where it rewarded the largest things that were rewarded were voting on Mafia and basically voting on more Mafia relative to the other town players, right? Which created this bad environment where 2 or 3 of us would make last second votes. Like we'd get together with 5 minutes left in the phase and make last second votes because it rewarded 3 to 4 of you being correct over everyone being correct, right? So that didn't work. But that turned into the next iteration of that scoring system is pretty solid. I don't have the page pulled up in front of me, and I don't remember it off the top of my head, but basically it rewards building a correct PoE.
Interesting.
So you don't like an important piece of context too is that we support multi-voting, so you can vote for more than one player at a time.
So, but only one person gets eliminated per day, or?
So the way we ran it was, this is still in the testing, so we're not 100% sure that it's like the best we can get it. But so you can vote for. Oh man, sorry, I'm trying to remember ahead. I should have had this pulled up. So you can vote for up to the amount.
We're having internet issues today.
It would take to lose. So if you have 7 players on day 1, you can vote for. I think we were allowed to vote for 4. And if you got, and however many people had the most votes at the end of the day died. So if 4 people all had 7 votes on them or whatever, then 4 people would die. If one person had the most votes, just that one person would die.
Okay.
And then you get scored at the end of each day for a combination of would your votes have won, and how accurate your votes. So like if you make 4 votes, right, and you have both Mafia in that vote, if you make 2 votes and you have both Mafia in both of those votes, that's scored the same. But if you make 4 votes and you only have 1 Mafia in it, that scores worse.
So the thing that I'm wondering about is like, well, how do you objectively measure the Mafia against an objective town measurement?
Mafia are scored on a combination of did you win or did you lose, and how long did it take you to lose?
How long did it take you to lose?
Okay.
Because the problem with introducing individual Mafia metrics is that encourages Mafia to prioritize killing partners over winning sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right. Well, yeah.
Or discourages them from killing partners when they should kill partners.
All right. Well, that's a very interesting system. It sounds like you're still developing it, so I'll be very curious to follow the progress of it. I think at least there's some good thoughts in there on how to, like, for example, counteract the buzzing thing and the new iteration of voting for Mafia and how that's done. Of course, the voting for several people thing is probably so unique that it won't be relevant in this context, but I think it's very interesting to hear about, and maybe at some point we can draw some valuable data from it. We have people chatting in the Twitch chat, and I agree with what's being said. You can say can't say I don't know if you can say the people that make the finals are the 15 best players on Earth. Hallie says, I of course agree with that. Maybe they're not even the 15 best that participated, but they're 15 of the best, and whoever ends up winning is someone usually you can get behind being a pretty good player. That's basically what we're aiming for here, is to have a player that everyone can go, yeah, that's good. That person is deserving.
Come on, I'm not even competing this year. So.
I was gonna make the joke if no one else was, right?
Somebody was gonna do it.
Yeah. All right. So
one very quick thing, you can't even say that because previous champions aren't competing. I don't know if they're barred or if it's just a tradition thing, but is it just season 1 is the best and we just get slightly worse? That's the kind of thing you have to accept if you're trying to create the 15 best all the time. Well, why aren't the same people last year the people who are showing up here? Is it because people didn't want to participate? Did they get better? Did they get worse? It's just not how it's ever going to work.
That's a clarification. I don't believe there's any formal rule that bars former champs from competing. Thingy can correct me if I'm wrong. I would assume that they just don't see a point because they already won.
Correct. Why tarnish their reputation? Stop on the top. I would do that at least. I could see GH being I could see General Handkerchief being a person that's gonna give it another go. That's my read. I think if someone's going to do it, it's probably going to be GH.
Don't tempt him.
I figured GH would kill us for suggesting that.
If he doesn't win, can we strip him of his title? That way we can keep him out.
Yeah, maybe. I like that. GH going for the MU Olympics win right now. I mean, he can't not go for these titles. That's just in his blood. Yeah, actually, at Sun, Greg, you brought up an interesting point. It's been said before. It's maybe controversial. Some have voiced the idea that maybe the general quality is decreasing as we go throughout the seasons because the best players participated in season 1 and they don't want to play again, so it just sort of degrades from there.
That was not the point I was meaning to make. No, that was more of a point of, okay.
No, I know. I didn't want to put words in your mouth. That is indeed not the point. That wasn't how I interpreted it either. But it was a topic at least that you voiced something about, and it's an interesting topic at least. I would say that I don't completely agree with it. I don't necessarily completely disagree with it. But I think Mafia is such a fluid game, and the communities are so fluid, and the best player. And a lot of Mafia is having the time for it, at least on for Mafia, right? So, I mean, maybe you were the best player 10 years ago when you had a lot of time, but if you don't have the time now, I mean, that is an element as well. If you can't put in the effort, then it's the same as real sports. If you can't run anymore, then you're not going to be good out on the field, right? So that's also part of it. And having that excitement and dedication to the game is a huge part of being good at it and willingness to learn and being humble in your game, I also think. A willingness to learn. We'll be talking more about that. But let's talk about the semifinals, because come on, you guys, you picked a lot of these players. So I'm very curious to get your guys' thoughts. So ignoring that game 1 has already started and making sure not to comment on game 1 or anything that's happening in it.
It's a pretty spicy game.
Which game before the first game started, before the first semifinal started, which game were you looking at and thinking that's the game I'm looking forward to the most? Actually, yeah, put up fingers. Everyone put up fingers, and let's do it that way. So
I'm gonna abstain from this.
Amy's abstaining.
Up a 3, I think.
Yeah. A lot of threes. There's the 1-2 from Pawn. All right, so let me throw some stats at you. The first semifinal has 5 main advances. The second one has 8 main advances, and the third one has 9 main advances. Which is interesting because it means that actually the one that you're looking the most forward to is the one that has the least of the people that you handpicked to play.
If nothing else is a defense of the player vote, then I think that is right there. There we go. We solved it.
And exactly right, because obviously I think this also means that you would have also put a lot of these players through, or I mean, probably all or almost all of them. And I guess especially in the third semifinal at least. Actually, I can quickly... let me just quickly find the picture. I don't have it prepared, but I can quickly find it on my computer. Just so we can look at the names. Let's just look at game 3 because that's the one we're talking about right now.
I can pull it up real quick.
I have it here.
Never mind.
On the stream so everyone can see. So besides it having the most main advances, it also has, I'm guessing, the most previous finalists. I'm probably missing some, so people can add names that I'm forgetting, but at least Achromatic, Apocalypse, Jagged Jimmy J, Silver Keith are all previous finalists, and I'm not sure if there's more, but at least those people are. Has Slooney and Slooney is a previous finalist, right? So is that 5 previous finalists? I'm pretty sure that has to.
I think it's just those 5.
Yeah, it's those 5, but 5 out of that's a third of the game are previous finalists. That's also pretty insane actually. Yeah, and the game with the most advances. So I can see why, and I would have picked that game myself. Before we just talk generally about these, let me just pull up the others because let's see all these names. So let's look at the second semifinal because Pawn also raised a hand for this one, and well, maybe it's because Rosen's in it. I don't know.
Yeah, game 2 is because I am very biased about it because my rep's there.
Yeah.
Like, I have to root for it, you know.
My rep's in game 1, and this places my big toe in talking about the game, but I think it's okay. And he dedicated his first post to my boyfriend, so I have to root for him now, right?
Yeah, my rep's on the second sub list, so I need a lot of people to suddenly drop dead. Free my boy Nuxel.
We need a death note.
Remember, Amy, I'm willing to go around and start cutting electricity for money.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, this might also be turn out to be the most. This is an interesting playlist. I think going on paper player quality, semifinal 3 looks to be the most promising or exciting game. But I think based on personalities and styles, this one for me, game 2 actually looks pretty interesting. I mean, we have Rich, who's an interesting personality. We have for the realm, we have the meme player here, right? Of course, we have my guy from PokerNet. We have Shepard from a real life community, doing quite well in his first advancing based on his first 4 Mafia game ever. Some people putting really strong wolf performances. It would be interesting to see how they do it. We have several surviving wolves here, right? I mean, this is a very interesting game to me.
I think they're both going to be really good games. I think they've both got some really strong and entertaining players, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
I think you saying that about Rich is the nicest thing you've ever said about a Dutchman.
It might be.
Radishes is asking in chat how many former finalists in semifinal 2, which I believe is possibly just Radishes.
Hasn't Dyslexicon been in it? Maybe.
I don't know if Dizzy's been to finals.
I think Dizzy's maybe been a wild card. But looking at this, I think Jack of Hearts has maybe been a wild card.
Jack of Hearts has definitely been a wild card.
Wild cards.
But yeah,
I don't think it's in the finals.
Just one finalist here. Previous finalists here. And let me just pull up the first one. Of course, we're not gonna be talking about anything from the game. It's ongoing. Just gonna be talking facts about previous accomplishments and such. Let me just pull that up here. So let's see. Previous finalists. Do we have any in this one, actually? We have Saigo. We have Violets. We have at least 2. Smart Bomb. Has he... Actually,
I don't think he has.
Yeah.
No, I think that's it.
I think that's it. So 2 previous finalists here. I mean, and also there's a lot of Mafia communities on this list
Smart
playing
Bomb's
this game.
been the finals, I think.
Has he?
Way back, I think like season 2, maybe.
Oh, let me remember. Okay, no. He was a wild card. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I believe.
I saw the finals trophy on his profile. Maybe I might be losing my mind.
Yeah. I'm
gonna check.
All right. So, but a lot of new, exciting names and well-known names, and I think that's an interesting mix. And personally, I'm always rooting for a new name, like an unexpected name to shine. That is my hope. That's what I want to see. I don't know what you guys are rooting for. But I'm curious to, out of these 3 games, and not talking about game 1 or how it's going, or maybe if you all had a number in mind before game 1 started, semifinal 1, how many town wins would you predict out of 3 semifinals?
Going full spice.
One max.
I predicted this before the semifinals start, so I'm fine with sharing this number. I said 2.
Yeah,
I predicted before it started as well.
I think I made a bet that there would be 0 to 1 between semis and finale. So
I think I made a bet with Sunfan specifically. I said that it was gonna be
that's
2.
right.
Yeah.
It's 2 or less was the bet, which is maybe the freest win of your life.
It's going to be the easiest win of my life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Prove me wrong, Town. Prove me wrong.
They won't.
I think all 3 games will be town wins.
That is spicy.
That's very spicy.
Come on, man. You can't be spicier than me.
Okay, I think 2 at most can be possible.
It's
2 is possible. It's not likely.
I'm not.
I think the final will usually be a Wolf win.
I think, and this has not been shown by the statistics, so I might just have to admit defeat. But I think the higher quality a player list is in a relatively balanced game, you get like close to a peak of town wins. Like it exceeds the statistical expectations by a good bit after a certain point.
That is for sure. That is for sure correct. And so I guess, but it's also a small sample size. It's actually a very small sample size. So I guess we can't actually draw strong conclusions from it, but what we can do is speculate about it. That's always fun. Right. So I'm curious to get your thoughts. Do you think in a higher level playlist, in this setting, mind you, with people from different communities, but having some knowledge of each other via just how this works, right? Do you think that produces stronger town play or stronger Mafia play?
I think it's an interesting question because go ahead, Pawn. Go ahead. Okay, I was gonna say it's interesting because in past years I think we generally see a higher town win rate in the wild card round than we do in any other round, including finals. Which, if you were expecting it to be a steady trend, you'd expect town to win more games than Mafia in the finals too. But I think historically Mafia has won a lot of the finals. They might have won like the past couple. I think they've won like the past 3 or I think they've won every final since season 3. I think season 3 was the last town win in finals.
There have been 2 of 6 town final wins, and I think that's right, Amy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely think it's an interesting dynamic where it might not be like a continuously increasing sort of thing where the stronger a player list is, the more likely a town win is. I almost wonder if there's a little bit of like a bell curve type effect where you at some point you get to a point where the wolf play starts to get so good that it starts to bring the town win rate back down. Because this goes more into my general Mafia philosophy, but I think it's easier to be a good town player than it is to be a good wolf player. And that might just be me, but I think it's easier to play. It's certainly easier to play town against mediocre wolves than it is to play wolf against mediocre villagers, I think. Because even if you've got a critical mass of villagers who are just like fine, then that can come together into something cohesive. Whereas as a wolf, there's, I think, much less margin for error. That sort of got off topic and onto a big tangent.
I like very interesting stuff. Tim saying in chat, so I guess this is also interesting for this discussion. Tim saying one super wolf can carry a game, and I agree with that a lot. But there is of course the thing that, and I guess this is what happens, right? When you have when you reach the semifinals and finals, you have players that producing a lot of content, and it's very good players, and it's so it might be easier to make a PoE, right? So, I mean, you can play a very good wolf game, but if everyone's just at the peakity top of their game, really producing a ton of content, just post of villagery pureness, is that going to make it too difficult for a super wolf to hide in there? Or can they easily do that? Because it just takes one good wolf to carry it home.
Okay, so getting back to what you said earlier, Thingy, on if you think that finals produces stronger wolf play, like stronger wolf players or stronger town players, I actually think it's neither. I more think that there's a degradation in terms of town play from wildcards to finals. Specifically because at that point, you've reached the relative top players, so you get to the point where, like, now you have a chance for the glory, you have a chance for the gold, you are going to have much higher instances of that affecting play, and that affecting play is always negative, because it always ends up going for vanity reasons, it always goes for chasing things that you shouldn't. There's going to be a lot more, like, tinfoiling for power wolves, because one, you know all these players are good, you know there's a chance that can happen, but it's going to go off, it's going to drag them out far more than it needs to. And plus, again, if you go find out, hey, you have good odds, it's just the sort of thing where there are so many outside factors that I think come into play here more than they do in wild cards, where that is going to hurt town so much more, where I don't think wolf play has to meaningfully improve from the wild card level at all, because there's no point to it.
So the short of it is, you think basically that the level of ego clash in finals prevents meaningful town cohesion to a degree that it makes wolfing easier?
I wouldn't even necessarily say town ego. Like, don't get me wrong, there are absolutely higher instances of town ego at that level. That's absolutely true. I just don't think it's the only thing.
Like, you think there's a variety of outside factors that limit town cohesion?
Yeah, and I do think that part of it is just a combination of getting a group of that kind of players together, and also just the environment. I think it's a combination of all those indirect factors that work together to just cripple any chance of town cohesion reasonably coming through.
Well, I think it's in town's fault because they have to be able to work together, and if they're not able to see what's going on, that is a skill they need to improve on to be better town. And it doesn't matter if you're in the finals or not. That just applies everywhere. It's harder in championship. So that's just what I got to say about it, you know.
Yeah, Bandy makes a good point. Well, he repeats someone's good point in the Twitch chat. Someone said this is spec chat apparently. He says Wolf team strength is based on the quality of their best player, whereas town team strength is based on the quality of the lower mid players. And I guess another way of putting that, or at least how I would, like how I'm looking at that is, like the game is never going to be won on day 1 or 2, because just the number of Mafia players you need to eliminate, right? At some point you're going to get down to it. Maybe you just have one Mafia player left, but at that point, usually the best town players are going to be gone from the game. They're not going to have any influence, so you're left with the the lower or the mid tier of the town players, and that creates an uneven battlefield, so to say, right? So you sort of rely on the stuff you've done in the first days, or you just rely on, I guess this is more so the case, like, that you rely on the lower or mid tier still being good enough, and I guess that's where, like, Tim's point of one Super Wolf carry game really comes into play, right? Because if you just have one person who just knows how to position him or herself, then you're set.
I will say it is theoretically possible for a game to end earlier than day 3 if you factor in mod kills, but then we're being ridiculous. But
I am hoping that we're not gonna have to mod kill anyone else this season. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Kami Turtle asks, how many of the Scum finals have been sweeps?
Season
5
was
5.
Season 5 was the sweep. 4 was not a sweep. 4 was the one where DLGN won in Final 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
5 was the sweep with General Handkerchief and Impoof and DS and Silver Keith was the Wolf team that swept.
Yeah.
What a team.
Had one person
Or SR.
SR subbed out for Silver Keith, yeah. So SR honorary 5th winner.
Or 5th winner. Well, that's a sick team. I would not want to play against that. So I'm curious, this is related to what we've already been talking about, but do you think that we're going to see a higher level of play in the semifinals compared to the finals?
I think that's arguably been the case in past years where you've had players directly skipping the wildcard round altogether off the player vote. And I think that while a lot of the times players do pick the best player from their games, sometimes factors make it a bit odd, and it maybe does wind up being an MVP vote, or maybe there's multiple players in contention and you can make an argument that perhaps another player was the better player. And so there's been a joke, I think, in past years that wildcards are the real finals. This year, I think, given that nobody's a direct advancement, it's going to be a lot more balanced. And I think the finals really are going to be like the cream of the crop this year and should hopefully be the best game of the tournament.
Speaking very briefly, comparing my wildcard experience to and my main game experience in Season 3, it's like not even a comparison.
Oh yeah, it's night and day, the quality of the games.
Right, like I don't think I could ever bullshit a convincing argument that my qualifying game was better than the wild card.
My qualifying game was better than my wild card game because I personally played better.
Yeah,
that's my bullshit argument.
That's a good bullshit argument. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Obviously, with no direct advances, it would seem weird to speculate that finals is going to see a lower level of play. So I would also agree with what Amy says here, and the finals are going to be maybe the most exciting ones to ever look forward to here, I think.
It's big shoes to fill, given some of our past finales.
Yeah. All right, so we're a bit short on time, also due to technical difficulties, so I will be skipping some of the questions, and I guess let's talk, because it's more interesting to talk about the games and the things that are really related to the championship. So I'm curious to learn about what was your favorite qualifiers read this season?
Game 6, not biased. Absolutely biased.
I have a hot take.
Was game 3.
Mine was 9, which I think is a little hot, but there were a lot of really cute people in Game 9.
I actually got super invested in Game 9 from Spec Chat to the point that during that Final 3, I stayed up like all night on a voice call with Vox and Ara trying to solve the game. Spoiler alert, I was not correct. But
I also convinced Vox off of his right read. That was for the right reason.
I didn't convince Vox off his right read. Vox was on the fence, and perhaps my arguments influenced him in the wrong direction.
Okay.
Did you say Game 5, Gio?
Yeah, everyone said 5. I thought Game 5 was a really good read.
I mean, aside from Game 8, which made me a little sad to read because I knew the eventual outcome, there weren't any that I won't even say I didn't enjoy reading Game 8. I would say it was a positive experience.
I think the quality of Game 8 was super high before it was unfortunately cut short, and I was looking forward to seeing how it developed, and I was sad to see it stop, obviously.
Yeah, I think we'll never know. I'm pretty sure Wolves were going to sweep, is my take on Game
8. I kind of think that Daya would have gone down at some point, and that Hallie would have carried it in the F3. They easily could have swept, but it's just with the position that Daya had subbed in on.
I mean, they were bussing Brad, so they can't really sweep to begin with.
Yeah, it's like
this is a Bradless alternate reality.
In an alternate reality where Brad doesn't exist, I think it's
where only 2 Wolves were randed.
I think it's a completely feasible assumption in that world that Wolf team could have swept. Yes.
Yeah, I think if Daya and Hallie had been the Wolf team from the start, they absolutely sweep. I just think that Daya had a bad enough initial position that they probably wouldn't make it to the end, but it wouldn't be from any fault of their own.
I don't know. We'll never know.
Personally, I also I think Game 3 is not getting all the love it deserves. Of course, the second town win, right? And a fast-paced game for those who like that, a 12-12 game with a lot of Euros in it, and I think a lot of interesting personalities. And what's interesting about that is compared to the other town win, which was like a dominating town win. So, I mean, I will always say you have to read that game, right? But Game 3 was like it wasn't set that it was going to be a town win. It just sort of happened. Because it wasn't like a set core or anything. It was just interesting personalities and good play and some very interesting characters, I think. So, I mean, I like that a lot.
I really enjoyed Game 3. That was my favorite, too.
That was definitely a good game. And I have to mention Game 7. I don't think anyone's mentioned that one yet. I don't know. I like games that go all the way to the end. That one went to F3, and it had probably the best Wolf play of the season. So at least up to this point, obviously. So I have to mention Game 7.
For sure.
I think Game 7 was definitely the most compelling of the final threes we had in qualifiers. I was super engaged with that game. It was super fun to follow as it was happening.
All the other F3s had the issue where by that point...
I mean, the other F3s were like game 9 and 11, which at that point, I think everybody was kind of dealing with qualifier fatigue and was ready for semis to start.
They were all just kind of tired. They were done. They just wanted to go in off of what they already had. There was no further reevaluation, really.
Oh, I was talking about from a spectator perspective.
Yeah, that's fair, honestly.
I wasn't trying to rag on the players. I think the players in all the final threes played great.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead, you.
Oh, I was just saying. I think Game 11 was a little overlooked.
Yeah, no, I mean, Game 11 was the one I look forward to the most. So, I mean, there's no lack of love for me, at least, for Game 11.
Question, Thingy. You said you thought Game 11 was going to be a town win.
Yeah, and I bet my avatar on it, and I regret it deeply. But I think actually I'm close to being able to replace it.
I don't see you.
I can have some suggestions for you.
Thanks, Amy. I'm sorry. What are you saying, Gio?
I was just wondering why because I don't see you bet too often. Why did you really feel strongly about it?
Yeah, so before the season started, I looked at the games, and I think it was sort of consensus that games 6, 7, and 11 were the 3 most exciting games based on the perceived average player quality level. Of course, there are a lot of unknowns because a lot of people you don't know. But game 11 was my pick, and I mean, I guess you could ask why do I? Because if one of the good players roll Mafia, then does that mean it's? I mean, I guess the question is, why should I think that it's a town win necessarily because it's good player list? And I guess I just felt it for some reason. I guess I just because if a lot of the players are good, then most of the good players will be town. And my hope was just that was going to carry the town through.
I did think that the Game 11 player list had a lot of really strong town players on it, and I think it says a lot for that Wolf team's credit that they were able to pull through even when they fell in a fairly early hole.
Yeah. And I guess what maybe also influenced me a bit actually was that a couple of names, I won't name specifics, but at least a couple of names I was like, well, if they roll town, they're going to be good town. If they roll Mafia, I mean, they're not going to be horrible. I think they're going to put in effort, but I don't consider them necessarily mega strong Mafia players. So hopefully they would be found out if they were Mafia.
It's bad that I know exactly who you're talking about.
But we don't really know what's going to happen in these wild cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
This might be skirting a bit close, and I'm not going to say any specific names here, but Game 11 is an interesting one because I wouldn't necessarily say it had the highest crop of high tier players, but it didn't really have a lot of lower skill players. I would see a lot of them were more.
It was a deep game.
Yeah, it's like there was less of a lower skill tier.
Yeah.
Dragging things down compared to some of the weaker games.
I agree with that 100%. That is exactly how I would put it. I think that's very well put. A very good median or a very good low ceiling, yeah. Or high, low ceiling.
High floor, I think is the word you're looking for.
High floor. Thanks. Related to this, what was the most impressive win to you guys in the qualifiers?
Game 3,
Game 7.
I mean, Game 6, but
I wouldn't say. I want to go with the one that was hard, a difficult win, but I'm trying to think of which one was the most difficult for who was in this situation.
I think I could honestly make an argument for Game 11. I think Game 11 was. I think Game 11 is the game where a Wolf had to solo Wolf for the longest that they wound up winning.
Yeah,
if I recall correctly.
I think I agree that is. I think I agree that is correct, and also opinionatedly correct, or however you would say it.
I do think it was. I don't know if I call it the most impressive. I think there were a lot of impressive wins this season. That one stands out to me as I really thought that was going to be a town win.
I did too.
I wound up being wrong. Well, I mean, I made that call during the game.
Yeah.
Some of us wait for more information.
Yeah. No. I also agree with you that during the game, I made the bet pre-game, of course, but then I'm looking at it after that second Mafia election, this is in the bag. I can pack up my stuff and go, and it wasn't in the bag at all. It was 1,000 miles away from the bag.
The one thing I'll say about Game 3 is I was not following it while it was happening, and someone mentioned Fighter keeps lynching wolves, and I was like, oh, he's bussing. And then NANOOK I think told me town just won, and I was like, what? Oh my god, my boy pulled it through. That's what will stand out in my mind.
I think we had this discussion after the second wolf died. I said someone said Fighter keeps killing wolves, and he said, oh, he's bussing. I was like, no, I think he's town.
I think I trickled down and said 95% Fighter's a wolf. Something like that.
You're right, 95% of the time.
Come on, guys.
Maybe.
I think maybe my choices are games 5 and 11 for that answer.
I think I just have to go with Game 7 ultimately.
I think I'd say either 11 or 7 or 6, and obviously 6 is for a very different reason, but
I want to give Game 5 some love too. I enjoyed Game 5.
I mean, see, there's a lot of games that we're talking about here, right? There's not any games that there's some that aren't being mentioned, but there's some that are
I think you
up
could
here,
make
and then most of them are right here, yeah.
I think you could make a reasonable argument for the inclusion of most games in this conversation.
I'd honestly have to go 6 and 7, but if I had to just mention one game that hasn't been talked about, it'd be Game 2, because I found so that game ended with 2 wolves living. That was
Game 2 was a sweep, I think.
F2 was a sweep, correct?
Game 2
yeah,
was
Game 2 was a sweep. It was KV, Rand, and
Nano.
4.
Nano, yes.
Nano didn't exist,
right, Nano.
Or you're just forgetting Nano. Oh, you should feel bad.
I'm sorry. But
No.
I guess I just wanted to mention Game 2 because, like, KV and Nano did get some heat. Obviously for multiple people, but they ended up not being lynched, and they also had one deep pull. So in my opinion, that was a clean game, to be honest.
Wolf sweeps usually are pretty clean, I think.
Yeah. Also, I want to give major shout outs to KV in that game specifically, because what she'd been doing was, during that game, she functionally acted as a dirty wolf. She was the one who was out there fighting in the trenches, getting dirty, going through and pushing through the eliminations. She was the one who did a vast majority of the in-thread work in my mind, and functionally the dirty wolf as a position, like, that is something that does not survive till the end of the game. It is ridiculously rare for it to, because when you play that way, you're functionally setting yourself up to do as much work as you can and set up as many associatives and connections as you can before you go down. You don't play to survive, but she did, and it led to a sweep, which I think is just frankly amazing play.
You wrote an article on that.
I wrote an article on it. I was gonna say.
I was gonna say, yeah. Like, it sounds like you're reading from a section from this article.
Yeah. For those who.
I think you wrote an article.
Yeah, no. One of the. I think it's one of the oldest articles on the site. Is Thingy wrote one about power wolfing.
It's called The Art of Power Wolfing. You can find it in the Mafia University section on Mafia Universe. It speaks very much about what you're saying there, Pawn.
I think there's like a direct quote that was almost what you said, Pawn, where it's like, people need to be congratulating dirty wolves more and not the people that fooled them the entire way through.
I think the sentence that stands out to me the most from that article, paraphrasing, is, as a wolf, your win condition is not to get town red, it's to kill villagers.
Yeah. Need to get stuff done, and that means getting in the trenches. And like I've been in that position a lot of times where like I've led my team to a sweep for the first time in a 21 or whatever, and all people are giving credit to that one person that seemed very towny but didn't push through all the lynches, didn't catch the power rolls. That's just so frustrating. So I appreciate you wanting to give that credit, Pawn, to KV, and I echo it so much. And I think a lot of that should be more something people focus on. Like, it's fine to get the town red, but you also need to get stuff done.
I think it's more dirty when there are more power rolls in him, whereas in Mountainous you don't really have to be as dirty.
Yeah.
If you think of town cred as a currency, which you maybe shouldn't, but like, this is the best example I can do. If you have a lot of town cred and as a wolf at the end of the game, and you just like never spent it, it doesn't feel that great. Like, you could have done a lot more with what you had, is my feeling about it. Although this is oversimplified and a bad comparison, but it still kind of works at least.
If you think of this as this, but you shouldn't think of it like that. But if you did.
Right. That you get it. Thank you.
All right. And since we're somewhat on the topic, actually, talking about the Art of Power Wolfing, which is an article giving advice and thoughts on the play, you guys are previous finalists. So presumably you're all good players,
all
right?
All but one.
All but one. Well, Amy's a pretty decent player as well. So you can give your thoughts here as well as you want. But I want to ask you, and this is for the benefit of the current semifinalists and for future finalists and future players for the future seasons. What advice would you give players?
Change very little.
Can I apply wild? Because I've been in both wildcards and finals as town and mafia, and I have to say, it's just, you have to work together with people and not get distracted by funneling. That's such a simple answer. It really is such a simple answer, but it's true.
I too remember day 3 of wildcard 2.
It's just, goes back to what I said earlier about so many like factors kind of ruining town cohesion. If your town, you just have to be aware of that, and you need to actively fight against it, both from yourself and from the other players within the game.
Sorry, fight against what?
Or just like fight against all those indirect factors that keep on influencing all sorts of bad play. Just like
I think Pawn's saying to just like buckle down and play the game and don't worry about
anything else. That's essentially what I'm saying.
It's simple, but that's what it comes down to ultimately.
Speaking solely for myself, I'll try and keep this as short as I can. There's a thing that I've been doing where I did it for like the second time in qualifying, and I was really happy with it, but then I abandoned it in finals. And the difference between qualifying and finals was just another Mafia game with a slightly higher skill level. Like, you don't need to overplay, you don't need to like make champ syndrome decisions. You just need to play the same game that got you to that position, especially this season where you've advanced twice rather than once and maybe twice. If you've advanced twice, whatever you're doing, it's good enough. Just like continue what you've been doing because it's worked. Yeah, like you're obviously on a roll. Keep doing it.
I think that's a super good point. I remember the wildcard game that I played 2 years ago that I keep talking about not wanting to talk about. Definitely, I think my play in that game was influenced by pressure. I was like, oh man, I got to play really good. It's a wild card. I'm going to thread camp harder than I've ever done before. I'm going to post harder than I've ever done before. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. You'll impact your ability. Yeah, I took away all my time to like actually reassess and think about the game, and it's not one of my better town games ever.
Wasn't it like oh, you go, Gio.
The three of us in here were in that specific game, and there was a lot of thread camping. And I think going back to what I said earlier in this podcast, I think a lot of us were using one specific angle to look at the game through. And I think that was the town's downfall because
I agree with that.
Monkey did such a good job of just playing into us playing and feeding us to tunneling or looking at skew or vote count.
Yeah, we basically just all cannibalized each other, and Monkey and Manticore stayed out of the way.
That sounds like Manti. I didn't read the game, but like that really sounds like him to me. But I think it was season 2 finals where the first post in the thread was a ginormous wall by Ask the Pizza Guy, and the first line is, "I will dedicate 18 hours a day to this game," and I don't do that. Please do not do that.
In Pizza's defense, I think he does that like every third game. I don't necessarily think.
I will say he finished in the top 5 and died night 1 as a villager, so like he didn't play bad, but I think that's generally not a good idea.
I don't think this is that spicy, but it's like maybe a mild spice. Overposting helps wolves so much. Sammy, what are you doing here?
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Damn it, Sammy. But okay, so overposting is just objectively anti-town in my mind, because all you're doing is you're flooding the thread. You're oftentimes just making so much needless like posts that aren't going to advance the game state at all, and just are providing cover for wolves to hide.
That's why I'm so glad there's a post cap now. I think 150 per day lifted at EOD is like the sweet spot for like a reasonable paced game.
I think I worked out how Pawn prepared for this podcast. Is that he secretly read all the articles in Mafia University and is passing off the wisdom from there as his own wisdom.
Haven't read a single one.
I for one am ready to hear Pawn's take on optimal hider play.
No, how did you steal my joke? You were in my mind just now, Amy. Oh my god.
Post, like in terms of how much posting is going on, like overposting, you have to be able to read the room. If you can read that a lot of these people in here have the time to read your posts, okay, you can get away with a little overposting. But if you have a lot of people who have time constraints, I mean, the finale, we had people going to weddings. There's like 5 weddings in the finale, apparently.
What the fuck?
Whoa.
But, if you don't have the time, you got to know what to say and when, like what you can omit and what you can just bring up as the main points. And I think that's an important point to keep in mind for all the players playing right now. Is we all have
the
different
time as best you can. Yeah.
I think my biggest piece of advice or whatever would be don't spend too much time on the game. Like, I know that sounds like a strange thing to say, but like the more, broadly speaking, the more time you spend on a game, like there's a point where you hit diminishing returns very quickly, and it's a lot less time than people think it is. Like a lot of people think, oh, if I spend 10 hours a day thinking about this game, I'm going to play better, and it's just not true. So I would say like don't get sucked into spending too much time. And a lot of times, people get sucked into the simple answer can't be the right answer because it's too simple. But usually the simple answer is the right answer.
Yeah,
spending 10 hours, like when you get to the simple answer after an hour and a half, spending 8 more hours talking yourself in circles is not productive.
Yeah.
Take breaks, walk away, come back, reassess.
Yeah.
For sure.
Focus on other games, like even other non-Mafia games. Like do some stuff to clear your head. Like
yeah, because I have to imagine there's some brain chemistry thing where if you're staying with the thread and thread camming, you're going to be making the same cognitive connections. You're going to have a bias that keeps perpetuating itself. But if you step away from it, take a break, you're also going to be able to look at things from a new perspective, and you're going to have the energy to do it. It's the same thing as if you're writing an assignment or a thesis or whatever. Just imagine starting this month on writing something, and if you're kind of writing the same thing a month from now or a week from now, it might not be the complete same thing. You're gonna make new connections because that's just how the mind works, right? I think it's just very valuable to keep that in mind for this.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say that because I was going to bring up writing and how if you've been in writing classes, they tell you, okay, don't just stare at what you're writing for 6 hours straight. You need to take a break and then come back to it, and then the editing process will be more refined. So I think you can apply that to being mostly. I think it's mostly applied to towning because you don't have the information, but you're going to see things that see if you're just staring at it.
Yeah. I have another piece of advice that's very villager specific, and I don't know how popular this opinion is, but don't play the game during the night phase. Walk away. Use that as your time to recharge.
Yeah. This is something I've learned very early, and I could not agree more. The only exception I would say is if you've replaced in and you're not current, or if for whatever reason you're not current.
If you have to get caught up, then sure, use the overnight to catch up. But if you're current and you would just be using the overnight to constantly turn your reads over in your head, rereading everything, reassessing everything, writing some big start a day wall post, don't do that. Just go chill. Go chill.
Yeah.
I feel attacked right now. In all seriousness, yeah, the night has to be primarily for recharging, just for both mental health and game preparedness. But I do think there has to be at least an hour or two after, just if it's a long game where you just look at EOD after everything happened, how the flip influences, and just go from there. You don't need more than that. But I do think just having that requisite thing is at least somewhat important.
Also, start a day wall posts suck because nobody wants to read them.
Yeah.
Find a better way to make your point.
Okay, not gonna lie,
if you can't make a point in half a paragraph, then it's not a point that needs to be made.
I disagree with that, but I will go so far as to say
at start of day. At start of day,
I think wall posts break up the natural flow too much.
Yeah. I don't even really care about natural flow very much, but I think I have to agree.
I will admit that sometimes as a wolf, I'll just do like starting wall posts of just like complete and utter bullshit.
Okay, if you're a wolf, throw this out the window and do whatever the fuck you
want. So many people don't actually look at it. They just go, okay, this person put in effort. Sure, town read, whatever. It's just kind of a free way of getting lazy town reads.
Yeah, so like I will also say disregard our advice if you've done this for a long time and you think this is really something important for you, and like Greg's telling you don't change anything and you change stuff every game that you've ever played, which I don't believe, but pretend for a second. Like if you really think that works, then keep doing it, and then maybe at the end of the season it's something you could explore. But like at this point in the season, you don't need to change anything unless it's like exceedingly minor.
That's true. This is more advice for players who are like still looking to find a style and looking to improve somehow. But if you've already got something that you think works for you, just stick with it.
Yeah, if you think looking at things in the night phase, like not posting about them, makes you make better opinions somehow, maybe it does, probably not. But like, don't change too much in that regard, which is contradictory again. But
yeah.
No, I agree completely though.
If I were to add one piece of advice, I think you've all given very good advice. By the way, Pawn, the article I'm referencing is one called Information Overload by SOA, so you can read that one if you want. And also, I think an article should be read about how to make posts, well-formatted posts that people actually read. I think that's going to be a very popular article.
It's 4 words. It's use the enter key.
yeah, that's...
I'm not trying to reference these. I swear I haven't read that.
You're just a good natural player who naturally knows how to play the hider role optimally.
But my one piece of advice would be stay humble in your game, which that means being willing to learn and being willing to know. Like being smart is knowing that you're not as smart as you can be. However that quote goes. Like I played this game I've been retired for some years now, but like I started playing retired. I started playing in 2009. After 1 year of playing like 50 games in 1 year, I thought I knew it all, and I can't tell you how much my game evolved from to the second year to the third year to the fourth year, and even 6 years in. I had major new thoughts about the game. So I think a lot of other top players, and it seems maybe some of you would also agree with this. So I would definitely advise people to stay humble and stay willing to learn. And part of that is also Mafia is a cooperative game, so you also need to work with people. That also means being willing to listen to them and being interested in what they have to say. That makes them more likely to be interested in hearing what you have to say. And no matter what your role is, you often do want to convince them or be convinced by them if you think they have something worth listening to. And so having that mindset of having an egotistical mindset of you need to have it your way, that can be very destructive. So that would be my advice.
I think that I would say on top of that, something that I took from another game, which I think is really, really great for self-improvement. This isn't just for Mafia, this is for like a lot of things. Specifically for team games. Any team game, you need to take every game that you have lost and you need to look at it after you lose and say, how is this my fault? You don't need to say, oh, these other towns played bad or my Mafia team was potatoes. You need to say, what can I have done better here? Because if you just dismiss, okay, well, I lost because my team was potatoes. Maybe you're right, but there are absolutely, like 99% of the time, there's something or some things you could have taken from a loss. And if you just like, oh, I lost, it's just because of this, you're approaching it totally the wrong way, in my opinion.
Piggybacking off of that, give yourself like a week after the game before you do that. Let yourself like be upset, be salty for a bit, but then buckle down, come back, fresh mind, and figure out what you can take away and how you can improve.
There's one thing I've learned from Daily Mafia. It's the importance of the post game and reducing salt. Like, it's ginormous. You won't even, if there was a way to stop the post game, you would feel it. Like,
Actually, one thing that we have on my Danish poker site, which is where I started playing, is that after each game ends, we actually have a feedback or evaluation thread. Like that's a standard thing for us, for people to just talk about the game and get a feedback from each other on how it went and such. All the names changed. Or some of the names changed.
I'm still me.
You're still you.
I'm apparently Greg now.
Sorry about that. My internet.
That's all right. That's all right. But yeah, I mean that's something we of course have post games, but I think putting it into system is kind of a cool thing. Like it just does something that people are thinking. Well, actually, after the game, we go into constructive discussion about the game, and I kind of dig that. All right, so we're nearing the end here. I do want to ask one last thing because I think this would be funny to talk about. Well, depending on what you have to say or what you can remember from the season. But I'd like to hear some of your favorite or funniest moments from the season. You have any?
One. Frinkles Cowboy.
For this one. Frinkles Cowboy was very good.
Frinkles was solid.
That's the funniest part of the season. This is Cowboy posting. I don't know why.
Mine was game 2. KV. If I could have anything, I'd have a unicorn.
I really appreciated Tim Hortons.
Game 7, all of Smart Bomb's Wendy posting.
There's Tim Hortons has become a meme on Mello's home site as well. I play there sometimes. Where Adrian refs. It's
honestly, I just liked Poison back tunneling each other in game
9. Okay. I think I can do this. Well, I'll play a game real quick with chat. I counted the number of times that Poison said Bakuisa's name in the game. We'll see how close you are. For context, they were both in Final 3. They played the whole thing together. Guess how many times Poison said Bakuisa's name? We'll give you guys a 60 seconds, and then I'll talk about. This is like the immature child in me, but I think Nuxel and JJJ's first interaction, where Triple J is calling Nuxel scum for pooping as the game begins, is really funny in my mind. This is just so random, but I'm gonna remember Beautiful Sky. I think that's her name.
Beautiful Sky.
Yeah. Knowing that Jenny is a joke before Jenny even talked about the joke. I think there's a glitch in the Matrix that happened there that I have no explanation for what happened with that. But also, I see a lot of meme guesses, and unfortunately one of them is extremely close.
Wow.
Game 10, I just love the reaction to Rosen posting his giant wall about why he was doing this and why he thought it was good.
I really appreciated X's wall in that one specifically.
Okay.
The coffee copy pasta.
No, please don't.
The X wall was just Lockdown, never rescinding, easiest read of my life.
Well, yes, it's please stop. It hurt me to read.
It was really good. I appreciated it.
The answer was 417 or 414 plus 3 typos, by the way. So 420 guess is really close.
Wow.
You documented all the typos too?
Yeah, there were 3 typos. There was one BOQQ, one BO, and what was the third one?
But how do you even find the typos? Did you manually just?
Yeah, I manually searched for them. Yeah.
Can I give one wrapping up thought here? And that is, have fun with this game. If you're being miserable, people are going to be miserable. And I'm saying this directly to people who are in wildcards and going to be in finale. If you're miserable, it's not going to be a fun experience. And if you're not miserable, you're having fun, your mind's going to work better. I'm just putting that out there. Have fun.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
very good one.
There's one other moment from Game 7 where Roundbox's bio was the text of steamed hams, and Smart Bomb tricked him into making a steamed hams reference, and it was a really good minor unimportant mind game thing that I thought was really funny. I think it went a little underappreciated, but
Did you guys have a favorite bio from the season?
Armin 94.
Armin 94. Iran's eyebrows is I don't know what it means, but it's pretty tough.
I don't think anyone could ever come off the defender of Iran's eyebrows. It's just not possible.
Armin is really hard to top. I actually really appreciated Roundbox's bio just being the transcription of steamed hams. I don't know why, that just really got me.
It's very Roundbox-esque humor, which is good.
I will admit I am very much a fan of Bokui's bio, explicitly since I know it was GH trolling him. Which
that's really good. That's really good. I forgot about that. Yeah.
I can't remember the one. Can you remind me?
It was written in not Swedish, I believe.
I believe.
Either Norwegian or Danish. I don't remember which.
That's funny.
I don't know if y'all have seen it, but Giraffe Syrup's wild card or semifinals bio is also.
I did
it
look
is
at
the
that,
most low effort thing, and I love it.
Quite nice.
It might have been in Norwegian, Vanity. I'm not sure which one.
It was either Norwegian or Danish.
Oh, I hope it was Danish. Oh, I really hope it was Danish.
I mean, you could probably go settle this question for us.
Yeah, I could actually. All right, so which...
He was in Game 9.
Game 9. All right, let's settle it right now.
Alright.
Very exciting. Bokies. Yeah, this is Norwegian.
It's Norwegian? Okay. Yeah, because it's got the O with the dash in it, yeah. Or the slash or whatever.
That's funny. That's very funny.
Excellent.
Mystery
solved, gang.
I always love a Swede getting trolled. That's my favorite thing.
That was game 9 for Boquise. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're about at the end. We're 2 hours in, and that's because we also had some technical difficulties. But there's always so much stuff to talk about, and there's like 4 things on the agenda we didn't even get to. Maybe we'll get a chance to do this another time in some other context. But I want to thank you guys for being here. I want to thank all the viewers for watching along, following along, and writing in the chat. It's always good to see all the support and all the questions and all the feedback. There will not be a podcast next Sunday, so I can say that at least. And I will return with word on when the next one will be. It sort of also depends on when the semifinals are over and just how my schedule is looking after summer vacation. But this is it for now. Again, thanks to everyone and all you guys. It was a pleasure having you. I hope you enjoyed as well. And goodbye, everyone.
Peace.
Yeah.